Hey there, Nancy Love, live from Los Angeles, California, for the Planet Peace Project, in my little mobile sound studio. Because when I decide I want to make a video and speak to the world, I by God make that video no matter where I am, even if I pull over by the side of the road and make it in my car. Now, um, I want to tell you about three poignant experiences. I'll try to make this quick. I think I've mentioned at least one of them in a previous video, but I suffer from no conceit that you've necessarily seen any of my other videos, and I just want to say now, for reasons I'm not even sure, I just feel led to share this, so I'm going to do it. Now, fairly recently, I was driving around in the morning and I just had an energy drink, and I saw a tiny Hispanic older lady in a shopping area, and she was gathering aluminum cans out of the trash cans at the um, shopping center. And she was very clean and she was very well dressed, and yet it was very early in the morning. She was gathering aluminum cans, and she was putting them in, and also plastic bottles, and she was putting them in these huge lawn and leaf container bags that were see-through, and the bags were taller than she was. This tiny person was, gathering masses of recyclables to sell, and the bags were literally taller than she was. And I thought, wow, that it's early. She is trying to better herself and her family. And I just drove past her, and I said, "Ma'am, would you like this?" And I handed her the empty aluminum can I just generated by drinking the energy drink, right? And when she first looked at me, she looked up and she looked frightened. And when she saw what I was doing, I was trying to hand her an aluminum can for her recyclable thing. Her face brightened like the sun. I'm telling you, people, the sun wasn't quite up yet, but the smile on her face indicated that, oh, yes, it was. She smiled like the sunshine, and she thanked me, and it was a sweet moment between two people. And that was all I thought of it. I was able to help some person. I thought, well, that's a good thing. It's not even 7 in the morning yet, but I've already managed to help a stranger. Gonna be a good day. Well, several weeks later, I was checking out at a business in that shopping center, right? And a woman at the register said, "I saw, I saw what you did with that woman, giving her an aluminum can the other day." And I said, "Wow, how on earth?" And she said, "Because that was her mother, and she was the one driving the vehicle she was about to pick her mother up with all the recyclables." And her mother, I said, "Why did she look frightened of me at first?" She said she thought you were gonna complain about her to the people who manage the shopping center for going through trash cans. I said, "Oh no, I would never do that. My God, if I would not complain about this person. She was just so beautiful." And she smiled like the sun, and she said, "Yeah," and she said, you helped my family on a lot of levels that day." And she said it was just really good that a white person noticed her, cared about her, wasn't, a Karen or whatever, and was just going to help in some way. And she just sort of got all glistening eyed, and she said, "It may seem small to you, but it was large to us. Thank you." That's whatever I can do. Well, that was sweet. There was another time when I very literally helped save a woman's life. with some empty aluminum cans. I lived on the second story of this place in San Diego several years ago, and I saw this beautiful young woman. She looked to be maybe late 20s, dirty, obviously homeless person. And she had a big sack of aluminum cans on her back, and she was rifling through the trash cans at corners at intersections. And I just couldn't stand it because I just wanted to find a way to help her, and I did have some recyclables saved. So when she got nearby, I called down to her and I said, "Hey, hey!" And I could tell she was acting like she couldn't hear me. So I just said, "Hey," in a way that I'm told shook the ground because my voice can shake the ground. And she looked up and she looked in fear and she said, "Oh no, or please don't complain about me going through public trash cans." I said, "I'm not. That's not what I'm doing. I have some aluminum cans up here. I'll throw down to you. They're in a sack. But I also want to know if you want some food. I have a piece of fruit and some juice I can spare. Or are you hungry? Can I assist you that way?" And she just it was like some sort of burden just fell off her shoulders. The look on her face, what happened to her posture, it was like some great weight had been lifted off of her somehow, and I didn't know how. But she said, "Yes, I would love to have a beverage and some food, and I will gladly accept those aluminum cans from you. Thank you so much, lady, whoever you are." So I instructed her to come to a different window where it'd be easier to aim and not miss. And I gathered some things for her, including the empty aluminum cans, which really have a lot of power in this world, power to do good. And I tossed these things down to her, and she thanked me again in a way that seemed holy. The way that young woman thanked me was like holy. But 3 or 4 months later, I encountered her, and we had a chance to have a really good talk. She said that at the precise moment when what she, I wasn't some rich lady, but she said what she perceived as a rich lady, because I was housed and I was clean and I was well dressed. Those things, housed, clean, and well dressed, those meant rich to her. She said that at the precise minute that I called out to her, she was thinking about killing herself, and she was 28 years old. And all she heard initially was some stranger who looked middle class and she'd never been, yelling, "Hey, hey, hey." And she thought I was going to bark at her, right? And instead, all I wanted to do was feed her and help her. And it meant so much to her that she decided not to kill herself because I threw down some juice, a piece of fruit, and some empty aluminum cans to prosper her and make her day go better. And I said, "You are so beautiful and you are so smart and you are so young. Why on earth would you be thinking about ending your life?" She said that she had grown up in her mother's car. Her mother was a drug addict and she had never been housed. At the age of 28, people, she had never lived anywhere inside other than a car, and sometimes not even that. And she'd been on her own since the age of 16 or 17, and she had just read that the typical female life expectancy for Americans had raised to 78. It used to be 72 or 73 or something. And she said she had just read that the typical life expectancy for American females was 78. And although she knew that chronic homelessness tends to reduce the life expectancy, and people who've been unhoused for decades tend to die at earlier ages than people who are housed, she reasoned or did this analysis, the math, and she thought that she would probably live another 40 years and she could not possibly stand being homeless for another 4 decades and was just going to short circuit that whole process right now. So, oh my God. Well, millions and millions and millions of people are housed. So why didn't you think you could get there? You mentioned she'd mentioned having jobs here and there. She'd worked, and I've got to tell you, she was very smart and very competent in many ways. Very obviously, a very a survivor. You would want that girl in your bunker in an apocalypse or your foxhole in a war. You would want somebody. She was a real scrapper, and she was very smart. And she said that it was not in her conceptual realm. It was just completely outside her ideas of what was even possible. That I thought that she could be housed and earn that for herself. She just it just wasn't in her conceptual makeup to think that she could ever actually be housed the way millions of people are. She said she grew up in the subculture of homelessness. She didn't expect or even hope for anything else. Well, I gave her a talking to. We talked a lot, and I asked her to not let what her mother put her through and how her mom failed her so horribly. Um, and I got a lot of compassion for drug addicts, but still, if you've got a kid, you need to fix yourself because you're hurting two lives, not just your own. And I talked to her about learned helplessness and how people in bad situations sometimes really do get trained psychologically to think there's no way out of those bad situations. But sometimes there actually is. And she thought about it. She thought a lot about it. Well, it turns out we saw each other a bit later, several weeks later, and she looked very, very different. She had gotten housing through working with a social worker. She was clean. She was dressed in clothes that weren't dirty. She had a different walk. She had her shoulders back and her chin high, and she was clear eyed. And she said, "Nancy, I just got a grant to go to college." She said she may be a little bit older than a lot of the college students, but she was not only housed, she was actually going to go to school. And she had her career path laid out and everything. And she said, "This all goes back to you. This all goes back to the day you threw those empty aluminum cans and that food and juice out the window to me. And instead of just being another middle class bitch, you wanted to complain about some dirty, ragged homeless lady going through trash cans. You cared about me. You cared so much." She said, "You didn't just feed my mouth that day, lady. You fed my soul." And remembering her and praying for her and hoping that she's doing well is so important to me. She's one of the reasons I want to encourage you to do whatever little bit of good you can, even if it's like handing somebody an empty aluminum can. You may do a lot more good than you realize just by indicating concern, just by showing a stranger such love. Now, the third instance when empty aluminum cans appeared to help change someone's world was years ago in a part of town that it's thought of as lower middle class, not even middle class, but lower middle class. I had gone to a large national franchise grocery store in that area. I was on the bus and needed to go to that particular one, and I had decided to roll my. I could walk then. I was not in a wheelchair. I could walk, and I decided to roll my groceries home in this cart thing that I had. So I saw this beautiful young black woman going through people's trash cans. It was on trash day, so all these barrels were out in front of people's houses, right? And I started talking to her. And I am not exaggerating, lying, or joking when I say that woman was one of the smartest human beings I have ever encountered in my entire life. I used to hang out with mostly university professors, politicians, doctors, attorneys. When I, you know, had a big house years ago and I would have big dinner parties, I'd look around my living room and it was full of well educated, locally famous professional people, right? I've never had a more enlightened, articulate conversation with anyone. She could have been a college professor, and I kept telling her so. And she said, "Oh, no, no, she could never go to college. They were poor. She'd grown up poor." And the reason she was going through other people's trash that day trying to get aluminum cans was she was trying to get enough aluminum cans to pay their rent. Her landlord was threatening to throw her and her mother, who was very ill, out into the street. So she was literally going through trash trying to save her housing situation for her and her very ill mother who couldn't work. And I said, "Oh, I sort of fretted because I didn't have any cash with me, and but I did have groceries, and I just bought us some V8 juice." And I said, "Well, I don't have any empty aluminum cans, but do you like V8?" And she brightened and she said, "Yes, I love it." And then she said, but she hadn't been able to afford any in years. And I reached in and I grabbed a can of V8 and I handed it to her. It was still it was still cold from their fridge, the grocery store's fridge, fresh cold V8 juice. And I handed it to her. I said, "Well, then by all means have some." And she sort of glowered at me and like I was missing the point. And she said, "No, ma'am, you don't understand. I'm looking for empty aluminum cans, and that one's full." I said, "Whoa, wait a minute," because I recognized learned helplessness in her. I recognize the damned if you do and damned if you don't syndrome. That's the other name psychologists have for the learned helplessness. And I said, "Well, you don't understand. I'm handing you a full can of the juice you said you loved, and once you drink it, once you have the first V8 juice you've had in several years because you thought you couldn't afford it, but now it's coming to you for free like manna from heaven. You'll have yourself an empty aluminum can. What's that, 5 cents worth? I'm not only giving you juice, I'm giving you something you can sell for 5 cents later when you sell the rest of these things you're gathering." And she just looked like the world turned. She literally started crying. And she started bouncing around and waving her hands around. She said, "I get the juice. I get to," she said, and she just cried. She said, "Oh, this is so important." She said that all of her life she had been relegated to a life of used, thrown out, empty things that other people had gotten to enjoy, but she never did. She said this is probably the first time ever that she got to have something while it was full. And she said she was gonna treasure that juice and it was gonna taste like manna from heaven. She said it was gonna taste like God's own manna from heaven because finally, somehow, she got to have the can while it was full, not just the can while it was empty and what other people considered trash. And she said she knew that that was the day her world would change. Well, we talked some more. Believe me, when I saw the transformation that simply giving this woman a can of a V8 juice had on her and her consciousness and her cognitive structure, her cognitive realm was transformed. I started talking to her about going to school. And I said, I am not joking, exaggerating, or lying when I tell you that I have never had a conversation with anybody more intelligent than you are. But see yourself that way. And how can the rest of the world see you that way if even you don't know how smart you are? And I, you know, figuratively speaking, spiritually lifted her chin and squared her shoulders and gave her some confidence. And I said, you could absolutely go to school. I talked to her about grant programs, and I talked to her about um, the social service agencies she could approach to get to that goal. And by the time we finished that conversation, she was she was going to school. She was not. She told me she was not going to spend the rest of her life seeking emptiness and that which was used and thrown away. She was going to find a way or make a way to have what other people had because one person on this planet gave her something that was full, not empty. And one person on this planet told her that she was as smart as anybody. That's what I wanted to share with you today. Never think that your kindness, no matter how small, is unworthy of the world. Always understand. Always please take it to your heart and hold it there. How sometimes the simplest, seemingly innocuous act of kindness can truly help change the world. This is Need Love, live from the City of Angels, the Planet Peace Project, or later. Planet Peace is just getting started.